want to read one of the comments from our members, and you can become a member of TYT by going to tyt.com/join. Members help to keep our show sustainable. Jay Hufford made a statement, and I want to hear what you think about it, Cenk. He says, as terrible as Harris is, she is the correct pick. Scaring white people by showing video of rioters is the only card Trump has left to play. Biden wrote the crime bill, and Harris was a prosecutor, thus completely neutralizing that last card. What do you think about that point?
Yeah, look, I appreciate the comment, but I actually think I'm not worried about that. Right now, Trump has like a 2/3 disapproval rating on how he's handled the protests that have happened after George Floyd's killing. So I think Biden and if Kamala Harris leans in his direction there, I think it's a mistake and doesn't neuter that. It only helps firm up his framing on that. I think that would be a political mistake, but I don't think they're gonna make that political mistake. If we're keeping it real, the thing that she's gonna help on is turning out the most consistent, loyal, and important voting bloc in the Democratic Party. That's African Americans. And so will she help in that regard? Probably. Is it really important? Yes, it's really important. And so I think that she helps in that regard. Look, in terms of who is gonna get picked, I told you there was really only 4 people they were considering, and only one of them is someone I would call progressive, even though some of you might disagree. So they were never going to pick Karen Bass or Tammy Baldwin or Keisha Lance Bottoms, etc. So those are wonderful people, but they were never going to pick them. The only 4 that were in consideration, in my opinion, based on everything that I've read and everything that I know, were Kamala Harris, Susan Rice, Gretchen Whitmer, and the dark horse there was Elizabeth Warren, right? And so I think they did actually consider her, but as usual, she got snubbed. So we'll talk more about that later. But so among those, Kamala Harris was always the favorite. And among those, I think Warren would have helped with some contingent of voters. And by the way, Warren polled excellent with African American voters. And Kamala Harris helps with some faction of voters. The other 2, I don't think would have helped at all in the race. And the other thing is, Biden doesn't really need much help. He's up by a gazillion points, not because he's great, but because Trump's an epic, historic disaster. So, I mean, you would have to be the most incompetent Democrat in the world to lose to Donald Trump. Oh yeah, that already happened. So I'm hoping, even if Biden is the second most incompetent Democrat in history, he still won't lose to Donald Trump. That's how unpopular Donald Trump is. And in terms of Biden's, competence, he's okay. He's hanging in there. So I know the rest of news thinks you should do news with pom-poms on. And so they get really mad at us if we don't cheerlead for Joe Biden and now Kamala Harris. They're like, what kind of journalist are you? You should be cheerleading for the Democratic leadership, right? But we tell you what the reality is. Billion times better than Donald Trump, and not nearly progressive enough. So I look forward to fighting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. What I would look forward to more is not fighting them if they actually pass progressive bills. I do want to talk about one other thing here. Oh, by the way, 3 years ago, almost exactly 3 years ago, I said that the establishment wanted Kamala Harris.
It has begun. The Bernie faction versus establishment Democrats. I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, and I marked it down on the calendar when I told the production team, which was 5 weeks ago, that I got it. I know who the establishment is going to support, and that's Kamala Harris. Freshman Senator Kamala Harris has recently become the subject of much speculation about a potential 2020 presidential run. Okay, so listen to the next sentence, so this is very important. Several major news outlets have run feature-length profiles of Harris, and top Democratic donors are starting to coalesce around her as their preferred candidate to take on President Donald Trump. I'm not prejudging Senator Harris at all, okay? But I do know that the donors are headed in that direction. There's probably a good reason why. They might know something we don't know. And the mainstream media loves her.
And voila, here we are, 3 years later, Kamala Harris. Okay, she didn't win enough votes. She didn't run a good enough campaign. But what the establishment wants the establishment gets.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.